And I looked through Carney's list of mega projects, which he said he was going to deliver. I didn't see a lot of revenue there, which concerns me. And the number one revenue opportunity is to get back on the train selling energy, our number one export. We could make billions.
I just love letting people talk. Sit back, relax, and just listen. I don't need to debate you. I don't need to argue your points. I just want to know what you have to say. Because Mark Carney just torched his own narrative while trying to rebut Pierre Poilievre in the House of Commons, to the point that his base, progressives, are planning a protest against him. Yeah, that's actually happening. The PBO has even said that Mark Carney's spending, his budget, everything he's planning is nothing but smoke and mirrors. And word on the street is that he wants to fire them for actually saying that out loud. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, like, comment your thoughts down below, and share this video. There is some breaking news coming out of Donald Trump in the White House. And honestly, the meltdown from the left is just glorious to watch when it comes to Jimmy Kimmel, when it comes to this story. The consequences are finally here, and they have no idea how to handle it.
Mr. Speaker, I know many things. I know many things. And one of the things I know, the member opposite, the leader of the opposition, just mentioned interest rates. One thing I know is that Canadian interest rates are much lower than American interest rates. They're lower because this country's fiscal situation is strong, because this government has a plan to grow this economy, and we will keep doing it. We'll keep it.
So Mark Carney, in rebuttal to Pierre Poilievre, just said that Canadian interest rates are much lower than that of America's because we're in a great situation with our economy. Our economic situation is way stronger than the United States. You know what's kind of funny about this, though, is that Carney built his entire narrative on this political persona that Canada is in an extraordinary crisis financially. That's why we needed the world-renowned globalist banker, because that required extraordinary central planning to get out of. And then he just claimed that Canada is actually stronger than the U.S. economically. And if that were true, then Trump's tariffs wouldn't have even put a dent into anything. So all of that just undercut his own justification for massive industrial subsidies, government-led housing construction, World War II era rhetoric, this hinge moment crisis. You know, if we're stronger than the U.S., number one, why are we nationalizing housing through Build Canada Homes? I thought he hated slogans. Why are they demanding federal bailouts for auto, battery, green energy sectors? You cannot say that we're in a crisis so bad it rivals the Second World War, and also our economy is stronger than America's in the same breath. One of those is a lie. I wonder which one.
I think I largely agree with what Amanda says. Those MPs that are in this discussion, including Chrystia Freeland, they needed them to win seats just to make sure that they could. Mark Carney didn't have a ton of time to recruit other people. So what really is going to be interesting for me is, now that he's been Prime Minister, he still is more popular than not. His party is still leading in the polls. People have a sense of his management style. Will he be able to recruit people that he wants? Because I think for him, success is going to be determined by getting like-minded individuals in those various ridings. But this is more about a time of transition. And lo and behold, if you're, with the exception of Steve McKinnon and Dominic LeBlanc, who I think he values very much in cabinet, and Melanie Joly as well, to be fair, if you're a former Grandchamp minister, watch out, because the
Trudeau
bus
minister.
Trudeau minister. Yeah, I'm dating myself. A Trudeau minister, the bus might be coming for you, because he really does want a new face in government, because you do see in opposition daily the Conservatives saying, same old government, same old thing. It's easier for the Prime Minister to push back and say no if these long-established Trudeau-era ministers are not around.
It could help a little bit, but also, somebody had posted this on X, and, you know, you can change the face, but you can't really change the ideology if you really believe it. Justin Trudeau had posted back in 2023, after the Second World War, Canada created simple, pre-approved housing designs that could be built quickly. Now, as we work to address housing challenges, we're taking that idea and adopting a catalog for builders so they can quickly build homes for Canadians. Yeah, that hasn't done anything at all. And fascinating enough, using the exact same language, because it's the same government, Mark Carney wrote just a couple of hours back, Canada's government is getting back into the business of building affordable homes. We're going to build at a pace not seen since the Second World War, using the latest technology to build faster, smarter, and more sustainably. And of course, using this exact same language, we also have François-Philippe Champagne using the same rhetoric, saying that, Canada must reinvent its economy like it did after the Second World War in response to Trump's tariffs, which Mark Carney said doesn't actually mean anything because our economy is so much better than theirs, right? Every single one of these pieces is just this coordinated narrative that's been slow dripped for a number of years using the same post-World War II comparison. The thing that's so frustrating about it is that almost every single one of these issues we're facing economically was self-inflicted. The Liberals spent a decade trash-talking people, having terrible diplomacy, spending all kinds of money they didn't need to, causing this collapse that we currently have, mass importing people, strangling investment with red tape, Bill C-69, among so many others, carbon tax hikes in general, capital gains tax. Oh, wait, no, now we're not going to do that. They did so many things to just destroy competitiveness in Canada and destroy our industries and completely gridlock us. And it's fear-mongering for control. That's what all of this is. By invoking that wartime urgency, they can frame the opposition, i.e. Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre, as unpatriotic. And then they can also justify this insane state intervention, all while Canada's private sector, which is what actually fuels our economy, is already on life support. And it's so funny to hear it as well, because here's the part that I think they're just hoping most Canadians are too stupid or maybe not old enough to remember, is this selective nostalgia. Post-war prosperity was fueled. Like, the catalyst of why we did so good was cheap energy, domestic manufacturing, low immigration, minimal regulations. That is the opposite of everything the Liberals are doing now.
Speaker, the collapsing economy is bringing down interest rates,
And that right there just destroys Mark Carney's entire narrative. GDP just fell 1.5%. Exports have plunged by 27%. And investment is fleeing to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. So the Bank of Canada cutting rates is to rescue a weakened economy, not because it's strong. Sometimes cutting interest rates can be a sign of strength. Totally depends on the situation, though. The situation that Canada is not in, because in some rare cases, stable low interest rates can reflect a very strong economy that's running at full capacity with low inflation, low unemployment. And that happens when growth is steady or inflation is near target. And so they will cut rates sometimes to sustain long-term stability. That's not Canada's situation, though. Our inflation is above target. Our unemployment is rising. The dollar is weakening. So to cut these rates, to have low rates compared to America, is not proof of strength. It's damage control.
the financial expert doesn't even know what his own deficit is. But another financial expert spoke yesterday. The Parliamentary budget officer said the deficit will absolutely be higher because of additional spending. He said he doesn't know what the government's fiscal anchors are because they do not exist. He says the labor market sucks and wages are not going up. These are quotes. Is this why Liberal members on the committee who heard those truth bombs threatened that the Prime Minister would fire the Parliamentary budget officer after 166 days?
I know that I have tried several fad diets over the years. I was vegan for a brief period of time. Juice cleanses, cabbage soup diets, you name it, I've probably tried it at one point or another. Doctors actually call this weight cycling, and half of the population does it. However, if you do it enough, you are at risk of diabetes, liver damage, heart attack, even a stroke. Weight cycling is when you lose 10 or so pounds, but then you put the pounds back on, and sometimes a little bit more than that too. That puts a tremendous strain on your organs and can lead to serious health issues down the road. The bottom line here, most people need help to stop weight cycling, and here's a great way to do that. Non-prescription lean was created by doctors. Lean is an oral supplement, not an injectable, and the science behind it is very impressive. Its studied ingredients target weight loss in 3 very powerful ways. Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar, it helps control appetite and cravings, and it helps burn fat by converting it to energy, which keeps the weight off. If you want to lose meaningful weight at a healthy pace and keep it off, add lean to your diet and exercise lifestyle. Get 20% off when you enter the code Jasmine at takelean.com. That's Jasmine, Jasmin at takelean.com.
And the Prime Minister made the appointment of the Parliamentary Budget Officer temporary, so that he could hold a sword over his head and threaten him if he speaks the truth about the financial mess the Prime Minister has made. That's what you remember? You know, to a government that doesn't know how to count, there is nothing more terrifying than a man armed with a calculator. And this Prime Minister wants to silence the Parliamentary Budget Officer from telling the truth about the fiscal mess that he has created under his watch. So will he, Mr. Speaker, legalize math, make the Parliamentary Budget Officer's position permanent, and tell us how big the deficit is?
Mark Carney and the Liberals have been framing this insane amount of subsidies, all of this borrowing as this new innovative fiscal approach. Oh, we have to change the way that we do economy here in Canada, aka we're probably cooking the books, to try to justify all of this spending. Oh, it's investment. It doesn't count as deficit spending because it's investment. That's not how that works. And the PBO has confirmed that all of that is pure accounting theater, and it will not fool anybody.
In that vein, for regular Canadians, can you explain just in simple words, what the Liberals mean when they say they're going to separate an operating budget from a capital budget? Like, what changes on the books when they do that?
The bottom line of the government will not change. So the international public sector standards that everyone uses to measure the deficit and levels of debt, that will not change. And the first reason that won't change is those are the accounting standards. The second reason is the ratings agencies won't let you change it. Like, that's the first thing they're going to go to. And if they have a sniff that somehow there's a change in presentation, you bet your boots that we're going to be paying more for debt pretty quickly.
Okay, so I guess your bottom line is debt is debt, right? If family takes out a loan for a new roof, it's still debt, even if they call it an investment. And same for Ottawa, borrowing, it's still debt.
Yeah, it's absolutely still dead.
He goes on during that testimony to say that he's hoping that he's not naive, but the potential optimism there is that indeed the Carney Liberal government will ensure that all new debt that is spent by them is going to absolutely result in something that will actually grow our economy. And as I always say, it is my greatest dream, my biggest wish, that the Carney Liberal government in Canada will prove me wrong. I will issue all apologies, all retractions of my criticisms if they do. Unfortunately, it's not looking that way, just as Kevin O'Leary describes.
People think, oh, we have to give respect to the pandemic. The majority of that debt, or a significant portion of it, came after the pandemic through the, complete lack of executional skills with Freeland as finance minister and Trudeau as prime minister. They were complete morons. And so Carney inherits this. I mean, unless he takes a Doge type approach and he becomes kind of an Elon Musk guy looking at every single employee saying, why do we need them? Half the solution is the cutting. But the other half, and I looked through Carney's list of mega projects, which he said he was going to deliver, I didn't see a lot of revenue there, which concerns me. And the number one revenue opportunity is to get back on the train selling energy, our number one export. We could make billions per month if we increased our ability for nat gas, LNG, bitumen, more pipelines all over the place. I mean, that's what would save us. And in the end, when he does his spreadsheet, he's going to come to that conclusion. And his best friend on that one is going to be Daniel Smith. We've really got to get pro-energy export to the Japanese, to Europe. Yeah, the US, they already have a pipeline, but diversification on that solves this deficit. Remember, Norway started in the 70s with the same assets we have. They're the richest people on earth per capita with their sovereign wealth fund. We're one of the poorest in terms of debt per capita. We really screwed up under a lot of bad management.
You know it's bad when a coalition of progressive civil society groups, many of whom rallied hard to elect Mark Carney, are now staging a Canada-wide protest. That's happening this weekend against his agenda. The movement, which they're calling Draw the Line, includes people from Indigenous rights, migrant rights, anti-war groups, and over 300 endorsing organizations. They say that this is historic unity on the progressive left, forming a common front to oppose Mark Carney's government. Protests are planned in at least 60 cities across every single province, including a massive Toronto march and a rally outside of the Prime Minister's office in Ottawa. While I may not agree with the issues that they have in 99% of cases, and some of them I agree with a small portion of it and the rest not so much, their main grievances are climate and fossil fuels. They're mad about the fast-tracking project situation. They're mad about public service cuts. They're mad about pouring billions into the military budget and cutting some federal spending by 15%. They're mad about Bill C2, Bill C5, as well as Israel and Gaza. So this is sure to be a very big protest countrywide with some of the wildest characters involved in it. And also, I'm sure some people who do actually have a good heart and are there for the right reasons. These are people who deeply believe in the social, cultural politics landscape. And the bigger picture here, I think, is the fact that Carney's coalition is collapsing from the inside out at this point in time, because the way that they view it, Carney was never a progressive. He was a globalist banker wearing their language as camouflage to get elected, sold himself as a savior to all of these climate and equity causes to get elected. And now he's gutting their priorities to appease bond markets and military industrial lobby and Trump's tariffs, yada, yada, yada. So the left feels betrayed. And the right never trusted him to begin with, because we actually are pretty against a good chunk of those causes. Or like I said, there may be some points that you can be like, I see that, I understand that, I get it. But the whole package that it's wrapped in and included with, you may reject. And it is really interesting that like 48 to 72 hours before this massive countrywide protest of radical leftists is about to take place in Canada, Donald Trump writes, "I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I am designating Antifa, a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster, as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter." You know what has been really fun to witness and also respond to? I'll be honest, I've been a little bit of a troll today on the interwebs in a kind way. You know, I don't like to get too personal with anything. But all of the people who are commenting saying, the first one I've heard most of is Antifa is actually, it stands for anti-fascism. So if you're against that, well, what does that say about you? Yeah, you know what's kind of funny about that is calling yourself anti-fascist doesn't actually make you the opposite of a fascist. It just makes you really good at branding, especially in this case. As an example, North Korea, they call themselves a democratic republic. They're not. So let's just quickly go through what political scientists generally define fascism as, shall we? And you can make up your mind as we get through this. Authoritarianism, number one, centralized power, rejection of democracy, suppression of opposition, intolerance of dissent, crushing opposing speech, parties, and press. Wow, that is fascinating. Violence as a political tool, belief that violence is justified and in some cases necessary to achieve political goals. Mass mobilization, use of militant street groups to intimidate or attack rivals. Cult of moral superiority, which is framing their movement as morally pure and opponents as evil, illegitimate, or even subhuman. And anti-liberal individualism, belief that individual rights should should be subordinated to the collective or the cause, aka they pressure members, they pressure the public to adopt groupthink, coordinated speech, and ideological conformity, and dissent is punished internally. You could use what happens to conservatives on university campuses and how scared people are statistically to just freely speak their mind about not being left wing as an example of that being very effective. And, you know, when you frame all of your opponents as fascists and Nazis to justify anything you want to do to them to stir up anything at all that could possibly happen, like what we have witnessed in the last week, the irony here is that you may claim to fight fascism by behaving like fascists. And that's the trick, though, isn't it? Because for many years, Antifa has branded themselves as anti-fascist, and for years, that label has been their shield. Anytime somebody called out their violence, their arsons, their mob attacks, the response was always the same. Well, if you're against Antifa, if you say anything bad about them, that means that you're pro-fascist. But their political playbook is pretty gosh darn obvious at this point in time. It's not fighting fascism. It is actual fascism by definition. And that's how they have avoided accountability for as long as they have. You know, you just got to wrap it up with branding it as the same thing that you claim you're not, and hope that nobody notices. Intimidate them enough not to do anything about it. But people are noticing now. The mask is slipping, and the mob has become the very thing that they claim to fight, and we are not tolerating it anymore. So tough luck. I don't know. It's, you know, it's actually pretty easy to live your life not as a total piece of garbage. And a lot of people do it on the left and right. So maybe you could get out of your echo chamber and learn from it, because it actually is a fact that healthy debate, disagreements, and supporting multiple parties that exist in a democratic nation, that's called democracy. Yeah, it is. And if you're going to do things like throw some Molotov cocktails at buildings, attack people online, cancel them, dox them, that sort of thing, that's not democratic at all. That's actually what you claim to hate. You know, it's fascinating though. This guy, Brian Krasenstein, he wrote on X, "I'm Antifa. It just means I'm against fascism," as if that label, you know, totally erases the reality of what the movement has become. And that's the thing. It's all just hiding behind semantics. He also says that Antifa isn't an organization, so it can't be designated, even though it operates as a network of black bloc cells who are all coordinating online, they're funding bail funds even for people. They're planning violence in DMs. It's insane. They're intimidating. It's not about paperwork. It's all about your behavior. And the behavior has been straight up domestic terror for years. And this is not exclusive to the United States at all. So, you know, you can cry that Donald Trump can't legally designate us. You're just proving the point. The only reason why it is so complicated to label them is because they have deliberately avoided structures to avoid accountability. That's not activism, buddy. That is design, and we're done with it, okay? Thank you for your time. Goodbye. Stop it. Go get a job. I don't know. What are you doing in your life where you have that much freaking time in your day where you can actually be a part of all of this shit at scale? I don't get it. Find a hobby. Something like, holy shit, dude. I am so excited to touch on the Jimmy Kimmel situation in tomorrow's episode. I have a lot of thoughts about that one, along with a number of other topics, things happening in Canada, the United States. I'm Jasmine Lane, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Be sure to subscribe, like, follow, comment your thoughts down below. And as always, share this video.